Let's imagine it's 1976. In Poland, we produce Polski Fiat, Fiat125, already the 9th year in production. It's a construction from 50s, but still a car that modernized Poland of 70s. In the same time, in West Europe, out of the factory line comes brand new Mercedes W123. Two cars, two limousines, completely different technology, which illustrated the technological gap between the East and the West from two different sides of the Iron Curtain. My name is Ted Pajak and I want to show you how these two cars differ. And here there are two old-timers from different sides of Europe in those days. Polski Fiat 1973 and Mercedes W123 from 1980. Technologically very much apart, yet both super classical limousines at the time. They are both brothers from different sides of the Iron Curtain, but technologically very different cars. Mercedes is larger, it's longer, you can feel it when you drive it right away. Fiat is more nimble, smaller, shorter, and also much narrower. You can also feel it when you just look at them from the front. You can clearly see that this car is actually not very wide, while this one is already a bit wider. Both have this classical shape, very clear front, distinct double doors on the side, front door, rear door, and the booth, clear luggage compartment. This is what I learned how cars should look like when I was a wee boy. The interior, both cars are for 5 people. Both have a back seat that is like grandma's sofa, very comfortable on real springs. Front seats are wide. The area of instruments and gauges very similar. Here is fantastic thermometer look-alike speedometer. Beautiful central console, lacquered in the original paint of the car. Manual gearbox, of course. Here in this model, gear lever is in the floor, but earlier version had a column gear lever. Here also very comfortable sofa, even more space because it's broader. Well, there is a baby seat installed at the moment. The front also a little broader, but big seats hosting a heavy passenger or heavy driver. Cluster of instruments. Here is slightly richer. There's also oil gauge and RPM meter, and most importantly, from convenience aspects, automatic gearbox in this particular model, but the automatic and the manuals were also available, like Polski Fiat. Let's look in the booth of Polski Fiat. Quite large. Well, I have there quite some tools and parts, but it's deep. You can put a large suitcase here and some small ones. Mercedes, side to side comparison. Well, the booth seems to be deeper and still wider because the car is wider in itself. The engine, the biggest difference between the two cars, obviously technology is like 30 years apart. Here in Polski Fiat, petrol engine, 4-cylinder, carbureted, 1.3 liter capacity of the engine, very classical inline position of the engine, water cooled obviously, the camshaft in the engine block, under the cover of the air filter, carburetor, the ignition cup with the timing, which is solved mechanically from down the camshaft. Mechanical fuel pump over there, well, carburetor as I said, under the air fill housing. Very classical unit, very simple. Here we have to do with the diesel engine, 5-cylinder, huge block, and a 3-liter capacity, with the pre-chambers for a diesel ignition. Here is a diesel pump with the hard lines. But here, look, already in those days, here we have a servo for power steering. And also this little thing here next to the radiator, this is the oil radiator. This line is now warm, the car has been driving. And even furthermore, down there, not sure if it's visible, yeah, there, that's the line that is actually running from automatic gearbox to the radiator to cool down the automatic transmission fluid for optimal working temperature. Well, here at this site, also classical, the housing of the air filter. So Mercedes here in the diesel version, it's not the strongest, not the weakest either. It's, when it was new, 88 horsepower, a lot of torque, I don't know how much, but diesel, so obviously quite some torque from low RPMs. And Fiat, little petrol engine, when it was new, delivered 60 horsepower. If you look at weight of both cars, one could argue that their acceleration could be even comparable. Alright, let's have a look how is the drive in two cars. First Fiat, the engine is already warm, you can start. Yes, the oil pressure is there. Now we reverse back to the freeway. Super challenging maneuver. No problem, we can deal with that. So, manual gearbox. No power steering. The first thing that you feel when you drive this car is the nimbleness of the Fiat, like it used to be in the old days, this kind of directness between your right feet, acceleration, all the levers that go to the carburetor, and what really engine does. There is nothing in between. It's just mechanical. So that's lovely. You feel connection to the engine, how it works. You feel what happens when you release gas, when you add gas. You hear the different tone of the engine, what it tries to do when it's not able to absorb the mixture of fuel and air, and when it's very leany driving, you also can feel it. You can hear it, you can feel it. And of course the right foot is steering the throttle here, so it's really opening the throttle in the carburetor. When I'm driving now with 2000 RPM, 60 km/h, it's wonderful cruising speed. or I should say generated by the engine. The car is really nimble, so this is what you feel, the lightness of the old days cars. Well, it can come with the side effect of being very flimsy and then going through the road, not so solid, but it has also its advantages. Now we brake here, bumper up, yep, now we go to gear number 2, and we will go a little bit slower here through the bumps, and then we have the bridge that can be opened here. Yes, and this acceleration, it's not spectacular for nowadays standards, but it's pleasantly developed. You feel like really as driver and engineer what happens with the machine. Very good. In the meantime, here is summer and pool. I see some camping cars, etc. Here we go. Very good. Driving old car like this Fiat is a sensation on itself for the driver. But it's a different purpose than driving from A to B. You will take it nowadays. It's an experience of seeing the landscape, enjoying the views, and enjoying how the engine works, how the machine is brought up to life. One thing to remember that this car is 50 years old. 50 years old. That's older than me, and probably older than you and many other viewers. So for 50 years old, it's like, in the automotive, it's like grandfather or grandfather even. It's quite advanced age. Machine works. Always will. Similarly, like in Fiat, I will drive now Mercedes. The engine is warm, but it's diesel, so it's a different process. First we blow the plugs, which is now, and we start. Beautiful. You watch the oil pressure. Oil pressure is maximal. Engine works perfectly. So we can drive now. This is automatic, so we first go to, and we release the handbrake. Now we go to drive, up, and we go. Start from the first gear, lovely, and second. Very good. What you immediately notice driving Mercedes, that this car is generally heavier, more bulky than Fiat. It doesn't have this nimbleness, not to say flimsiness like Fiat. This is more solid piece of machine and heavier, which is the fact, because engine itself here, engine block is of cast iron, cylinder head is from light alloys, and the engine block is gigantic, so it is heavier in the front. That's why it has the power steering. It's indeed not needed here for maneuvering. The automatic transmission is very convenient, full mechanical system. The engine is also, not the most quiet like in the Fiat, but fairly fine for a nice gang to accompany your travel. And this, what immediately you notice that yes, this car is like a boat. It's bigger, it's longer, is wider. But on the upside, comparing to Fiat, it is more like set more strongly staying on the road. It has less tendency to move around on the road without the driver intending to do so. So in that sense, a bit better driving experience, but different mainly because of the engine. It's a diesel engine here, so comparison is, well, not really justified to do, but still, as a driver experience, it's both cases is pleasant. This one is just so settled. This diesel, it's smooth. It has more momentum from motoric from the low RPM. The automatic gearbox is using low RPMs. So in that sense, it's very pleasant to drive slowly and statically, like without too much changes of speed. Second gear, third gear. And now we are pulling up the gearbox. Yeah, and now it's fourth gear. So here we come to the traffic lights, and now we pull up from traffic lights. Gear 1, gear 2. From traffic lights we turn to the motorway, which will immediately mean I need to more vigorously accelerate, which I'm gonna do by pulling the car from fourth gear, from let's say lower RPMs like now. Look, now already I get 80 kilometers per hour. No problem to get to the cruising speed, just like in the Fiat. 80 is okay. Here I can even go a bit faster, but in essence both cars feel the best in the speed of 80. This is what 50 years ago the cruising speed has been. And there, if you look at RPM sets, the gearbox ratios, everything is set properly to drive at 80. Well, now we are 90 km per hour and we are at about 3000 RPM. Very comfortable cruise. This is really essence of cruising with the old Mercedes. It's not too noisy. Now it's 87, 88 km per hour. Perfect speed. Very economical. Engine is not crying out loud for too high RPM. Everything is working perfectly. Very smooth, confident on the road, stable. Look at the comfort here. I have an arch support. The seats are big and deep. It doesn't seem like that, but they hold the body, pretty well. Especially very comfortably. Everything is on springs. The suspension is soft. The seats are soft. Everything feels so nicely refined for comfort. I need to change the lanes here because we will go to the left, on the left lane. So increasing the speed to match the traffic on the left lane, no problem at all. We can do that amongst all these electric, modern, boring looking cars. So now we are 95, 97 km per hour, almost at 100. Look, the diesel engine is running like a music, like an orchestra. All these 5 cylinders work, a gentle gas, so there is not too much injection. It's actually quite economical drive. Can you imagine that this car, I've been driving it now for quite a while. So with this car I can make the average fuel consumption of 7.5 to 7.9 liter per 100 kilometers. Liter of diesel option, of course. This is with driving it, at speeds around 80, 90.
Supposedly when you go to higher speeds like now, the consumption would increase. But let's remember, this is 5-cylinder, 3-liter block. It's a gigantic engine. So for the car that